2022, the year of cyber.
Hey Ken, 2021 was an eventful year, and now that the new year has started, what are some trends that we can look forward to in 2022?
I think a lot of times it's really hard for us to predict where the year's going to go, but I think some of the different folks out there have done a pretty good job of at least trying to give us a guideline of where the year could progress. So the first thing we might see in 2022 is an increased government interest or influence even in the cybersecurity space. Whether that comes in the form of something like legislation or just guidelines is, remains to be seen and really varies on where you are in the world. But it will probably be interesting to see which governments and what governments are taking the next steps into providing either guidelines or some kind of laws on where the trends and how to react to these different situations that seem to keep arising in order to keep things more consistent depending where we are. So, if we look over the last year, it seems kind of crazy to say, but SolarWinds was just about 1 year ago, and look at the influence that had on not just in cybersecurity but IT. If we see more things like that, having a consistent way to that the government or governments are looking to respond and decide how to handle risks in the cyberspace will come more and more to the forefront. The second thing that is potentially going to be seen isn't anything new. It's social engineering. So social engineering is something that we've probably seen probably since day one, and probably before the world of cybersecurity or just cyber in general existed. But if we think of social engineering, it's from a fraudster's perspective, it's a very true and tried way in order to bypass a lot of different security that's put in place within a network, whether it's scam calls, scam emails, smishing. You think it's probably some form of social engineering, and being able to better protect people, whether that's through something like a software product that maybe gets put in with email, or training for people, is going to continue to be very important this year. Nextly, some of these get a little interesting, and you have to kind of dig into it a little bit to really kind of get out of it what the thoughts are. The next one is that supply chain is going to become something like a new ransomware, and that's not to say that we'll just see a ton of supply chain issues. What this is really trying to get at is that ransomware is going to become more of a symptom than something that is the issue itself. So ransomware might become a symptom that something is being targeted, not necessarily that, oh, let's go just launch a ransomware attack somewhere, as some fraudster might say, in order to gain potentially some crypto, or to just gain some funding. So I'm not entirely sure on my thoughts on this one. I think that supply chains in general, I think in the last 6 months have come a lot more to the forefront, and I think ransomware has probably for the last few years been a growing trend, and something that's fairly lucrative to cyber actors. And if we look at continuing with ransomware, the next thing that they predict is that ransomware as a service actors potentially pivoting to small and medium businesses and prospering. This one again, I think it's hard to really say, has this already happened, or is it that a lot of these ransomware as a service actors, are they already hitting small and medium businesses versus a big business, and it just doesn't get potentially the news that hitting a bigger target might get. I think if you look at it, maybe a larger target might be to the actors might be more lucrative, or potentially a bigger payday. But the small and medium businesses, they might look at it draws less attention. So depending who your actor group is, versus going after a large company, and they might look at it and say, what's the risk from the ransomware actor side of hitting a smaller organization versus a larger one. But I don't know about that one. I think it really depends on which actor you're dealing with. And then lastly, the fifth item that they target here is that cybersecurity, the industry itself, needs better coordination in 2022. And this is something that you probably say every year, that, and it's probably regardless of the industry even, that there needs to be more collaboration, more coordination, in order to better address the problems that are being faced. Really, whether it's a larger institution or organization, or government agency lending help to smaller organizations or businesses, or players in the industry coming together in order to solve an issue that helps everybody, looking to collaboration and coordination in those areas in order to make things safer for everybody. So I'm curious what you guys think. Some of these I thought were pretty good, and some of them, it's we're sitting here in early January. The jury's out, so to speak, and we'll probably in 12 months revisit this and say, oh, well, there was this other thing that was looming that we didn't even think of.
Yeah, well, I think the pivot. I know, like you're saying, I'm kind of like you. It's kind of up in arms per se, but or up in the air. But the pivot to small businesses, because small to medium businesses, because they do have some resources and capabilities, even though they're not a large, that can provide as you say, lucrative means to the attacker. So yeah, I think that is going to be a possible one to maybe watch. And then for me personally, social engineering, because when you go to DEF CON, watch the social engineering. Social engineering there, you see it throughout, phishing, whatever. It seems to me like that is just always in a threat, which it is, and always something that occurs. And that goes back to security training, as you mentioned, and awareness. And that is one that sometimes it's just hard to get everyone who's maybe not aware on board and understand how security is on a day-to-day basis so critical and so important.
Yeah, and Ken, I'll go back real quick to your Dave. That was a great point, and I'll go back to your ransomware note or topic that you said. Ransomware is going to be more like a symptom now, and I think that's what people need to look for, and not only a symptom, but it could also be a distraction. Especially for targeted malware. Everybody's going to be focused so much on this commodity ransomware, on mitigating and remediating their systems, that it could possibly be that, behind the scenes, they've also dropped some kind of shell and they're in the systems now trying to move laterally while you're remediating, this ransomware that's, encrypting some of the end users' pictures and files. So I think that's something that needs to be also considered. Like, don't just focus on that specific payload.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, George. And I think that's part of why they compared ransomware with the supply chain, was saying that maybe they use ransomware to gain entry at this one point, and while, like you said, you're busy remediating in one area, they've dropped something that managed to move through, whether it's a supply chain or just through the network, and do something else that they were potentially targeting. Okay, so I think it will be interesting to see where these all go, and if we look at this in November, December, or even next January to see what things actually transpired, how accurate was this, and like I had mentioned before, what things were maybe just sitting off just in the distance that just missed popping up into this.
Okay, yeah. So it looks like also too these could go hand in hand because you start out basically as you talked about with coordination. So if you're talking from like a attacker perspective, just kind of look at about the how a company's working with the government. Are they truly working with the government or not? And then maybe that would be a lower attack. If they're not, maybe that's a smaller or mid company, and go through the flow. And then the next thing would be the social engineering attack. And then if they get through that, and then that pushes into spear phishing, or then it goes into as you're saying, the ransomware that they push across. So even though these are 5 kind of trends, it's almost like there's a step-by-step process of these, as you would do if you were an attacker per se, following the steps to actually perform an attack on a particular company. So it's kind of like, again, these are kind of a step-by-step process or hand in hand as they're listed.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Dave. And it will be interesting to see how it all plays out this year. Maybe in November, December, or even next January, if we get back together to look at these and say, oh, well, that never came to be, or oh, this all came to be, and there was this other thing off looming in the distance that we hadn't seen or hadn't known about yet, that we'll say, and that was the big thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right. Yeah, I mean, it would be good at the end, but again, like I say, and not on that, it's just kind of like to say these do look, similar to a profiling per se, or the recon stage of an attacker, and you can go just step by step. So it's kind of interesting how these were laid out, even though they are trends. It seems to me, as I look at them personally, is like how that lays out or is outlined there. So definitely good trends listed there for sure.